And welcome back to the Scott Krijnen channel. I'm really excited to welcome a very special guest. This is someone that I greatly admire, look up to, and hope to be someday when and if I grow up. This is Ben Simon, conductor of so many different wonderful ensembles, but the Palo Alto Chamber Orchestra and the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra are the two that are currently most relevant in what he offers the Bay Area. Ben, welcome.
It's so nice to see you, Scott. I want to be like you when I grow up too.
I just wanted to let everyone know just what it is that you do and that you've used as a passion point for all these years. You're a violist. Are you okay admitting that?
I'm actually very proud to admit that.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to know since the millions might be tuning in, if that was something that you were keeping hidden. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable as we move forward. So that's terrific. So as a violist, you've been playing in a variety of different ensembles. So for the folks who might not know Ben Simon and what chamber music is, where did you start playing the viola, and what were some of the professional things you did before you were organizing as a conductor and music director?
Well, I'm a little ashamed to admit it, but back in my day, no one started on the viola. That's been a phenomenon of the last generation, maybe. But I'm going back 2 generations ago. Nobody played the viola, so I did start on the violin, and I got to play viola in college because there was an orchestra audition, and there were 2 violin openings and 32 people auditioning, and there were 2 viola openings, and I don't think anyone had signed up for the viola openings. So the conductor was asking the violinist if anyone played the viola. And it turned out that my first violin teacher in San Francisco was a violist with the San Francisco Symphony, Manfred Karasek, and his 3 kids are still around. Wonderful, wonderful musical family. And so he sent me off to college with a viola, and he said, this is going to come in useful. And so when I auditioned for this orchestra, they let me in on viola. And that was really the first time I played. And then I soon found myself in a viola seat in a string quartet with some graduate students, and that was really fun. I fell in love with the viola. I fell in love with chamber music, and I've been trying to keep those 2 things together for the rest of my life.
And of course, just the viola, what wondrous qualities that instrument provides a chamber ensemble is the inner voicing and the fact that you really get to be friends with everybody if you're a violist, because you can either be the motor with the second violinist, you can be the bass voice if it goes to a trio, you can have the melodic motion, you can really draw a lot of attention from everyone around you.
But as a violist, you don't need the attention. That's the nice thing. First of all, you don't have to fight over first violin, second violin, which I never liked. I mean, everyone wants to play the melodies, but you don't want to have to, so viola, you don't use the viola. So that's a really good thing. But also you quickly realize it's the most important chair in the string quartet. Everyone hears the melody and the cello has the bass line, but it's the second violin and the viola that really make a string quartet. And once you get to experience that as an inner voice player, that philosophy really has carried me forward. I'm always trying to get an audience to listen past the melody. What are the cellos and the violas and the second violins doing while the first violins are playing this tune? And that makes the music so much more interesting, I think, for a listener, but also for the kids who play to realize that there's nothing second about a second violin part. And everyone makes fun of the viola, but I think they know deep down that it's the best instrument. And it's just, they just feel bad that they are not violists and they have to make fun of us. So.
Sure, it's just jealousy, absolutely. In the end, it's just a basic human jealous nature. Every composer who's written anything didn't write the melody and then think, that's enough.
Correct. Beethoven knew what chords he was going to go to and what progression he was going to use, and then he figured out what to write to those keys. So it's really, in a way, I have to admit, Scott, even though I just said the viola is the best instrument, I think we all wish that we played the cello because, it's great to be able to play those lines. But I think as a conductor, one is always paying more attention to the bass lines than the melodies.
And so we're sort of helping to drive the whole ensemble that way. But, it's funny that you mentioned that for cello, because if I'm going to sight read and there's no violist, I will play the viola part in a heartbeat on my cello, because I love playing those notes because they're so interesting. They're so different than anything that I get to play.
They are, and you don't hear them. They don't stand out the way a melody would, or even a bass line. If you can You can concentrate on the bass line and hear it, but it's much harder to do on the viola line. But when you get to experience that and hear how it fits into an ensemble from the viola line, it's a great feeling.
So you did viola and you did chamber music, and then you got to be in a professional string quartet, and you got to experience the energy of what that is. You got to do a ton of concerts. You got to experience what that is. So you have this vast array of experience to kind of share with either your colleagues or your students that you have now. Like, hey, this is what this life is. This is what the preparation for that is. When you were concertizing, what type of schedule was that?
Well, I was in a string quartet that was playing about 120 concerts a year for 4 years. And it was my dream job. And it was also the worst. It was so hard. It was a fabulous 4 years. I learned so much. I wouldn't have given it up for anything. And after 4 years, I had to find a real job again because I had 2 small kids. I think the string quartet is a job for someone younger, someone in their 20s. I was in 2 string quartets, the New World String Quartet, which had won the Naumburg Award for chamber music in New York before I joined them. But we had a really nice management, and we were doing festivals, and I was just away from my baby daughter too much, so that wasn't the right job for me at the right time. I went into the LA Philharmonic for a couple of years after that, and that was a fabulous job. They say that a string quartet is the best way of making music and the hardest way of making a living. And an orchestra is the best way of making a living and the hardest way to make music, because you feel you're inside this giant machine. You don't really get to say anything, and they tell you what to play. They tell you how to play it. It can be a very frustrating job for a lot of musicians, including myself. And I didn't want to stay in the orchestra. So when I had a chance to come up to Stanford, being the Stanford String Quartet, it was a crazy move, because you're not supposed to leave an orchestra like that. And one of my claims to fame is that I was fired personally by Condoleezza Rice at Stanford University. Yes.
Oh, congratulations.
That was good. She was actually she was a fantastic pianist herself. I went from there to the Krijnen School in Berkeley, where I started teaching and conducting really for the first time in my life. I had always been interested in conducting. I bought scores, and I love to listen to music watching scores. I still do. And I recommend that to anyone who loves to watch music or listen to music, to follow the music. Follow a score if you can. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it's really fun to watch the music unfold on the page. So I've always been interested in that. Then the Palo Alto Chamber Orchestra came calling, and I auditioned for that job and got that after I'd been in Krijnen for about a year. And the other piece was the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra, whose conductor I had been close with for many years, Edgar Braun, who was my predecessor at the orchestra and one of the founders of the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra. They were doing 2 concerts a year, and I got to conduct one, and Edgar conducted another. And my concert went well, and the next year, Edgar was starting to become ill, and he let me conduct both concerts. And then he passed away the next summer, and I kind of stood there with the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra in my lap. And so I started getting friends, and we constituted a board. We eventually got an executive director and started to hire the best musicians in town. We got Robin Sharp to be our concertmaster, and Eric Gensland and Hannah Adario Berry as our cellist, and Michael Tadei as our principal bass, Deborah Fong from Stanford. We have a wonderful place. We have a great time. And it's so sad to see all the music stop. We're both busy guys, and we like it that way, and then looking in your calendar, and starting to cross things out for months and months and months. Sometimes with my soloists, I plan 2 or 3 years in advance just to know that Matt Heimovitz is going to be able to come and play with Baco, or Ariana Kim's going to be able to come and play with the SFCO. So we have to do a lot of planning, and someone just said, stop.
But you've done some things immediately, and just to go back very quickly, you mentioned playing chamber music is the best job but the hardest to make a living, and the vice versa for an orchestra. Well, here you are in a position where you get to make chamber music in more of an orchestral setting. So what are some of the versatile and positive elements of SFCO, because it seems to draw from the best of both worlds?
I think a chamber orchestra is a really nice balance between the bulk and the beauty of an orchestra and sort of the nimble flexibility and fine tuning of a string quartet. We do some chamber music, but it's mostly music for chamber orchestra. The difference being that chamber music is one person on a part, and as soon as you put two first violins on one piece of music, it becomes an orchestra, sort of by definition. So, we'll have five first violins, and 4 seconds, as opposed to a San Francisco Symphony, which will have, what do they have, 16 first violins and 14 seconds. So, the scale is much different. And I only hire really nice people. I think that's a key. I hire people who are into what we're trying to do, which is be friendly and not competitive, and sort of treat it more like chamber music than orchestra, and more like something you really care about than just a gig, which becomes so hard for so many of these freelance musicians who are shuffling off between these excellent ensembles, but one week it's this and another week it's that, another week it's that. And I want them to come to the San Francisco Chamber Orchestra and go, okay, we're here for the week, we're gonna have a great time, we're gonna make real music together.
In 2020, it's a time for flexibility. So you have Simon Says, and I'm sure looking ahead, you have some ideas that you can keep connecting and sharing, because some of the great things you do, you have these wonderful free concerts, right? You have, for the people that don't know, I mean, it's just an incredible series of concerts that you share with the community. So with Simon Says and some of the other things that you're doing with SFCO, what have you done to adapt to the world of 2020?
Well, I'm being dragged kicking and screaming into the iPad generation. I think I'm doing pretty well for an old guy. And we have a young, self-described digital native on our staff, Krijnen, who is our managing director. And she has been encouraging me and helping me a lot in putting a little video series together. I see myself more and more as an educator, not only with my younger charges at the Palo Alto Chamber Orchestra, where you're more directly you're teaching them musical skills, but also with an audience. And with our admission-free concerts, we're always trying to draw people who think they're afraid of classical music, or think they don't like classical music, or think classical music is boring or expensive. And we're trying to break down all those barriers and bring this incredible art form to a concert hall, really good musicians who are enjoying playing the music, but then talking about the music and sort of explaining, giving people places for their brains and their minds to think about and to go while they're listening to the music, sort of windows into the piece, which I always enjoy, like a lecture about a painting. Someone will tell me things I've never seen, and I'm understanding the painting a little better. So just a little bit of understanding goes such a long way that we're starting the Simon Says show, where I'm going to have these little musical talks. The thread through all of them is they're about active listening. They're about how to listen, or why to listen, or what to listen for. That's going to help the audience enjoy and appreciate classical music. We've also started a game series called Name That Classical Tune, where we have a little Zoom grid of 4 of our SFCO players. And then we have Keisuke Nakagoshi. And, well, you know Keisuke, of course. He's our orchestra Scott. So I give him the tunes to play, and then I'm the game show host, which is what I've always really wanted to be, instead of a conductor. And then we give the team, we start with 2 notes, and Keisuke plays 2 notes of the theme. And then if they can't guess it, it goes to 3 notes in the other team, and then back and forth. And it's really fun. It hasn't gone viral yet, but it's been a little bit of a splash on YouTube, and making more of those. So that project has the advantages of being a lot of fun and extremely time consuming, right? So it's nothing I could ever do during normal life. So in a way, it's an ideal time to be doing this sort of project. With the SFCO players, it's very similar to what you were saying with Cambrian. We're gonna break up into smaller groups and play. We're looking for outdoor venues. We just found out what the rental rate of the band shell in Golden Gate Park concourse is, and that would be a fantastic place to bring a Mozart divertimento, bring 10, 12 members of the orchestra and play. So we're looking at things like that, ways of bringing the music out to where people are.
We all get to be first-year teachers. We all get to try projects that we've always been interested in, because this is what it is. For the last 3 months teaching, every lesson I say, all right, guys, this is my plan for the day. This is what we're going to try and do. We're going to see what works. And basically what we're doing is you are my student teaching for what it's like to teach in a remote situation. And we're going to find projects that work well for you, that work well as an educator, that I can consistently and effectively grade and give feedback on. And then we'll keep the good stuff and we'll get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. And I'm going to thank you, and we're going to make sure all of next year's students thank you for your efforts in the last 3 months, just so we can try some stuff, because really it's a lot of trying. Active listening is something for me that I try and bring into my teaching all of the time, and into my playing all the time, and into my conducting all of the time, because I'm sure you and I have both had conductors that stopped the rehearsal and said something that wasn't happening.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah,
that's the worst. Right. I mean, that's the job of the conductor more than anything, is that rehearsing, that listening and hearing and rehearsing and correcting. And you're validating what the kids have heard. You're telling them that they're right. It wasn't correct. Right. And so you're helping everybody learn from the correction, if your attitude is right. And that's, of course, you and I, we're always going for, you're here for the process of making the music. It's not the concert. It's not playing concertmaster. It's the learning process. That's the most important thing here.
You're managing a lot of different things.
I like being busy. I do, which has been strange during the pandemic, because, as you know, so much has stopped. So I'm not really a good person on the beach on a vacation. That's not my personality. I like to be busy. It makes me happy to be engaged in things. But I have to say, it's been very nice to have the opportunity to let the rope unwind a little bit. And I know how busy you are, Scotty. You are like the guy who sees 900 kids a week at school or something. We're in awe of your energy and all the multiple roles and jobs you're always handling, not to mention husband and father. But I do think the pandemic has given us all a chance to reassess our priorities, certainly in life, and what was so important about that, or why we were in such a hurry for that. And it's given me, one of my friends said, well, I haven't gotten to that yet, but there's time. And I thought, well, probably, I mean, yes, we don't have a vaccine right now. There's going to be time before the situation changes. And it's kind of nice to be, I mean, it's horrible because of the virus, but that time is sort of a gift for us. And if we're lucky enough to be healthy and have, not being, alone and mental problems, this has created so many problems for so many people. I feel extremely fortunate. My wife and I get along mostly. And my dog takes walks around the block whenever I want to go outside. So, we're very lucky. But I think the gift of time is very elusive, and it's sort of very special when you get it. So unwind a little bit. That's my advice.
Yeah. What we were doing, and there were a lot of great things. I mean, It were great things. I know for myself, and you and I have known each other now for a long time. So, it was 16 years, that some of the choices that I was making professionally were just unsustainable. It was just hard to do everything at a level that was respectful of all parties involved, without me, being detrimental to my own capacity to just sort of be a functional, a well-adjusted human. So
that's a recurring pattern for you, Scott. That's a recurring pattern in your life.
It is.
We've seen that happen several times since graduating from school.
I don't know what next year will be, right? I don't know how what I've learned from having those cycles, because they seem to be at different stages. I don't know what next year will look like, and what the expectations will be, but it was interesting. Of course, there was a lot of sadness with, the first we were gonna have no concerts. And then Skywalker was canceled, and our LA trip was canceled, and then of course most recently the Payco camp being canceled. But the flexibility of not having those massive organizational requirements of the LA trip, right? Taking 300 middle schoolers down for 4 days and not sleeping, and just those stressed, trying to keep these kids safe and healthy, and trying not to only eat cotton candy type things. It's a reset for sure. I don't entirely know how it'll impact us all sort of globally. I mean, there's some potential challenges, of course, for a long time for certain individuals where economically they weren't able to sustain through this, right? And being in the public schools, like, we are always concerned about making sure that the kids and the families that are struggling, to help them in any way possible. In the last 3 months, if they didn't have Wi-Fi, I mean, we have a lot of holes and gaps in our society where we're not taking care of some of our most fragile members. And so my hope is that looking forward, that the planning goes into just making sure that we can keep working on closing the equity gap, because I don't see that getting better with all of this. That's one of the big sort of sad challenges.
Yes.
So it took a long time for me to sort of accept the fact that we just have to sort of wait and then completely reevaluate and adjust until we can do so safely for all parties. Because I just wanted to throw myself back in there. I'm like, well, let's just have all the kids meet on the sidewalk 6 feet apart and we'll play hot cross bunch. She's like, no, you can't do that for these. It's like I had just the brain wouldn't stop.
I know.
And the heart doesn't stop either, because you care about the kids and you care about connecting with these
families.
And
that's a good question. Why can't we line up on the sidewalk and play hot cross bunch?
I like finding the reason you can do it, not looking at all the reasons you can't.
Exactly.
And
you could do it, Scott. I know you could.
Well, you and I could play on the sidewalk. There must be a duet for viola and cello out there that we could learn.
Well, Beethoven had one, but it's not his best piece.
Or his worst is probably better than my best, so it's probably okay.
His worst was pretty bad.
Was it? How bad?
Yeah. His worst was pretty bad.
Okay, like if you had to choose Baby Shark or his worst piece, which one would you choose?
Oh, I love Baby Shark.
Okay, so there you go. So Beethoven ranks lower than Baby Shark, everybody. You heard it here from Ben Simon.
You heard it here.
To help Simon Says go viral. we will celebrate Baby Shark and all that it has given to our society. Equal opportunity family singing is a stab in the dark for me. I wasn't entirely sure if that was going to
give me another pop reference. See if I know it.
Oh man. Okay. So you just got my one pop reference. My kids really enjoy this video of two dogs flying in a plane that just go ba ba daka ba 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 daka ba ba ba, and it's gotten 60 million views, and that's all it does for 3 minutes, and they love it and they watch it every day, and they're like, Dad, look. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I saw that already. I don't get it. I feel like I understand when my parents didn't understand what I liked. I understand now that, because I don't understand why the kids like it. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But what we're going to do is when you finish watching, we're going to put a link to everything that you're doing, because I know you and we can speak really casually together because we've been friends for a long time. Anyone who gets to work with you understands just what you've given for the many years that you have been conducting and performing and teaching and collaborating through the professional string quartets, through Harvard and Stanford and the LA Phil and the Palo Alto Chamber Orchestra and the SFCO, all the work you did at Krijnen, all the people that you've inspired to be at their best. You've certainly given me a pathway, and Payco specifically, and all the work with you has influenced, I would say, every aspect of my teaching. In only positive ways. And I so appreciate you taking some time and speaking with us, but I look forward to other folks getting to know who Ben Simon is and seeing what it is that you give to the community. And I certainly hope that Simon Says goes more viral than the two dogs saying ba ba daka ba ba.
I'll settle for half as viral. 40 million would be fine, Scotty. No, thank you so much. That was kind. You were one of my favorite people. I love talking with you and I love working with you, and you constantly are inspiring me as well, Scott. So it's not just one way. We're mutual inspirers, and I'm very glad to have you in my life. So thank you for inviting me here. I wish you success with your show as well. And let's talk soon.
We shall. And for everyone, Ben Simon, virtual round of applause. Thank you so much for everything that you give to everybody. And we're wishing everyone to stay safe, stay healthy, and looking forward to finding ways to connect. Remember, together we're better. Always be your best selves.